We're taking a live look here. That is Buckingham Palace on the side of your screen, where in about an hour we will also hear from King Charles making his very first address to the nation and in fact to the world. And we see the crowds that have been gathering there. They're mourning their monarch. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II has been met with sadness. And this was the moment that the news broke on the BBC.
This is BBC News from London. Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Well, joining me now is the former royal correspondent for the BBC, who spent decades covering the Queen, not only in England, but around the world. Honored to call you my friend as well. Michael Cole, thanks so much for being with us here on Newsmax. I know you've been on the air pretty constantly since this news broke. Thank you for joining us today.
Bianca, we're witnessing history, all of us witnessing history. Just as the death of Queen Victoria in 1901 ushered in the 20th century, so the death of this monarch, with her unparalleled reign, Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II, 96 years old, ushers in a new age. And if I may say so, I do compliment and commend you on your elegant black dress. If that is a silent compliment to Her Majesty and her work and her duty, then I hope I may, on her behalf, extend posthumous thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Well, you know, I know that a lot of the people in the BBC were also wearing black, and they won't be airing many no comedies. A lot of things, plans that have been put in place will continue. I want to ask you, though, since you spent decades covering the Queen, you've been to incredible places for her visits, been behind the scenes. What was she really like?
You know something? The Queen was not in the slightest bit grand. The job was grand, but she was not. She had a natural modesty, which showed itself in the way she was. Manners is making other people feel comfortable, and she made everybody feel comfortable. She went out of her way to do so, and that extended to everyone she ever met. And that's why there is this heartfelt outpouring of grief and also thanks. Those people you're seeing there down at Buckingham Palace, lots of Americans among them, they're not being forced down there. They're not being bussed down there. They're not being told to go down there, wave flags. It's not like North Korea or Putin's Russia, where these events are staged. They're there because they feel a tremendous affection for Her Majesty the Queen, and they're going to be transferring some of that to her eldest son, who is going to reign as King Charles III.
Let's talk about him.
To say that.
It does, and I do want to talk about that. In fact, at one point, Michael, we never thought that it would be, Camilla as well, the Queen of Consort here, who's really been welcomed into the family. I mean, there's just so much history here. But speaking of King Charles, there's a piece today stateside in Politico saying he's too political for the U.S. Obviously, there'll be a lot of people chiming in about how the monarchy will look now with Charles. We're expected to hear from him within the hour. What does it look like? Does the monarchy get weaker? Does it get smaller? Does he be an activist, continue to push climate change? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was put to him quite recently whether he would continue the activities and the speeches and the lobbying that he carried out when he was Prince of Wales, heir to the throne. And he replied, I'm not that stupid, he said. I'm not that stupid to do that. In other words, he realizes in a constitutional monarchy, the constitutional monarch reigns but does not rule. That's the job of the government, led by the First Lord of the Treasury, known as the Prime Minister. And he will keep out of that from now on, being strictly neutral. And if he doesn't, he'd be very silly. And I don't think he's very silly. I think he's got to realize that that is the way ahead. Of course, after his monumental mother and her 70-year reign, it's inevitable that his reign is going to be comparatively short. But that doesn't mean to say it won't be successful. After Queen Victoria, who died in 1901, as I said, she was succeeded by her eldest son, Edward VII. He was the big fat king
Yes.
with the beard, the cigars, and the potatoes. Now, he reigned for 9 years until 1910.
Exactly.
But it was a golden era. He had a horse that won the Derby. People look back on that era. And he went to France and he kissed the hand of a French actress and he said, "Madam, you are as beautiful as France itself." And that cemented the British relationship with France, which was called the Entente Cordiale.
Michael, I don't mean to cut you off because we could go on for hours. You have such an encyclopedia of knowledge, and we do have to have you back because we know we have many weeks ahead. But I do want to also say, not only did you work for the BBC, you also worked for Mohammed Al-Fayed, who you introduced me to. At the time, he owned Harrods. Obviously, his son Dodi was with Diana that tragic night. We just passed a 25-year anniversary. Mohammed had some very strong opinions about the monarchy, was not afraid to share them at the time. You know the scandals that the Queen has gone through, Prince Andrew the most recent, and now we see what's going on with Harry and his brother. How was she able to withstand all these storms?
I would say that also Mohammed Al-Fayed, who remains my good friend, he always respected the Queen, and he could always make her laugh with his sense of humour. And since you mentioned Diana, and what happened today was that Prince Charles, as he was now King Charles III, came with Queen Camilla to Buckingham Palace. And I was at their wedding. I covered their wedding in 2005, and it had to be put off by a day, but because the Pope died. And which was maybe a sign from heaven or something about the wedding. And of course, it was a civil wedding. They were both divorcees. And it was said officially by Buckingham Palace at the time that Camilla Parker Bowles, as she had been, would not become his queen. It was quite specific. But the biggest last favour that Her Majesty the Queen did for her son was saying and making it clear in a statement that she wished, it was her wish, that Camilla would be known and would become Queen Consort. And that, of course, was what he wanted, and he certainly got his wish. Today, as you saw, they went to see the flowers, and that was quite poignant because after the death of Diana, after she was killed in Paris, the Queen was criticised because she stayed up in Balmoral and she didn't come back down for several days. And the royal family were very unsure about the reception they would get at Buckingham Palace. But the Queen decided that she would go and meet the crowds, and she got out of the car and she walked towards the car. And one of her subjects brought a flower towards her. And she said, "Oh, yes, I will put it with the other flowers." And he said, "No, it's for you."
Wow.
And at that moment, she realized that she still had the loyalty and love of the people.
Beautiful story. Michael Cole, please come back and share more poignant moments that you've got to cover with the Queen and your extremely illustrious career with the BBC. We certainly appreciate it, and great to see you, my friend.
It's an honor.
Thank you.